Hi everyone and welcome to my multi-shot speed farming guide. So this is the main Demon Hunter build for years already. We have the Gold Demon Hunter now, but I still want to get this out here and just show you guys how to set this up. I've already covered a solo push version a while back, and here is what you have to do for T16 and for like tier 95, tier 100 plus solo speed farm, for example. It's still a really good build for that. And definitely, if you enjoyed a multi-shot, you don't really have to worry that you're gonna be left behind. So here's the setup. The way this works is it's the full Unhurled Essence set, and this gives you a huge damage bonus to your generators and your multi-shot for the 6 piece for each point of discipline you currently have. So this is not the max discipline, but you have to keep your discipline as high as possible at all times, which is not too bad because there's Yang's V-curve, which on top of the multi-shot has a lot of resource cost reduction, and this is an extra primary. So you can get a Yang's V-curve that rolls double resource, so if one of the random primaries also rolls resource, you can get some weird values here, so don't be surprised about that. But otherwise, this gives you like almost all you need to just walk around, and it's a very mobile build because of that. And we also have Damon's Legacy, which is the other key item here, which is another really big boost to your multi-shot damage, and just one of the most important pieces in this build. You have to see that because of this discipline scaling, you also really need discipline on your items, namely the quiver, the weapon, and the cloak. These are the 3 items where you can get discipline, and on top of that there is the preparation, invigoration, which gives you another maximum plus 20, and for a total with perfect rolls you have 86 discipline. There is Stone of Jordan for Demon Hunter that also gives you more discipline. I think it's up to 10, so the maximum would be 96, but this is typically something that you would only wear in T16. It's not really good for like actual like higher tiers, because each point of discipline you have to calculate as roughly 1.2% DPS. So I get a lot of questions about Stone of Jordan, and no, it's not worth it for a pushing scenario, because something like Focus and Restraint is much stronger. You get 50% multiplicative for Focus, you get 50% multiplicative again from Restraint, and these are simply much stronger rings than Stone of Jordan. I just want to clarify this here. This is because of how the numbers work. You have a big multiplier from all the discipline you have, and you just add a little bit to this multiplier from a Stone of Jordan. Anyway, so we have those items here, and the good thing is with this huge resource cost reduction from Yang's V-curve, you have the Captain Crimson as a very effective supporting set that you can equip here. So you want to go Ring of Royal Grandeur and Captain Crimson, and you get all the cooldown you need to get some resource, you get some damage from the cooldown, and then you get a huge damage reduction. And since you have something like 70% resource cost reduction with this plus the Yangs, plus Paragons, and maybe the Helm, you have very high toughness when you combine it with vascularity as well. So it's a quite tanky speed farming build for a Demon Hunter, and definitely also like very beginner friendly, I would say, because of that. So the thing is with Captain Crimson and Dawn, you can actually get exactly the cooldown required to get permanent vengeance on Demon Hunter, which is a very common skill to use. So you want to have this and up at all times, and you need 37% cooldown reduction for this, which the Captain Crimson plus the Paragons plus the Diamond in the Helm will give you. In this setup specifically, I replaced the Diamond in the Helm with Topaz for even more resource cost reduction, even more damage reduction as a result. And instead we have a cooldown roll on the shoulders and also the quiver, or like any other item, but this would be the preferred choice here. So you can do this, either you go Captain Crimson and 2 items with cooldown, or you go Captain Crimson plus the Diamond, and this will give you the cooldown required. Other than that, we have Squirt's Necklace. There is no way to protect the Squirts here, because there's no Fortress Ballista, there's no Wildebeest, so you have to be a little careful with dodging, but generally this is fine, especially when you blast through the content and one-shot everything off screen, then it's generally up a lot of the time. And you can also protect it with Smokescreen, so instead of Wolf Companion, this is definitely a viable choice to just go with Smokescreen, for example, Vanishing Powder, which costs nothing, so you can use this every few seconds. And like this you can, run into an electrified pack and just not worry about your squirts, for example. You can just use it when there's some archer projectiles and so on. So this kind of comes down to what you prefer. To finish the skill setup here, obviously we have Multishot. We use Arsenal for this because you launch 3 rockets, and this will make it so that you can just kill elites really fast, the Rift Guardian really fast, and you have a really good combination of AoE burst and single target and like kind of like cleave damage on like a few targets. So this is very nice, and I would definitely prefer this choice here. For solo pushing, generally for the high tiers you want to go physical, but here it's arsenal. Then we have a generator to give us a little bit of resource and a focusing restraint buff. Vengeance I mentioned, preparation, vault for the mobility, and then as I said, it's either smoke screen or the wolf companion here. The passives, we have ballistics, which goes really well with the multi-shot arsenal. So we have really huge rockets, and the rockets are actually your main damage in a single target situation. So this is really useful here. We have Fear of the Hunt for the slow effect, because otherwise it's very hard to actually apply any slows in this build, and you want the Bane to Trapped effect, you want the Cull the Weak effect, and like this you apply it after the first shot. So this is quite nice. And then we have Ambush, which also helps you, especially in speed farming, to just do like one big burst, immediately have all the enemies either killed or in Deadman's Legacy range for the double damage. And it's just a very nice choice here. And in the cube, it's Dawn, Hexing Pants, and Ring of Grandeur. Legendary gems are Bane to Trapped. We have the Zaze, which is always nice in such a range build. And we have the Bane to Powerful. You can also run Molten Wildebeest if you like, so this would help you out a little bit with the Squirt's Necklace. And then, you know, you can keep running with the Wolf, and then, you know, replace the Bane to Powerful with the Molten Wildebeest. So you get a bit back from having the Wolf instead of Smoke Screen and so on. So you can also experiment with this depending on your toughness. The build is rather tanky, and then, you know, even when you get hit by, you know, one or two things, the Molten Wildebeest shield is not necessarily gonna drop, and you keep your squirts, so this is pretty good. Other than that, you just want to roll the cooldown values, as I mentioned, some resource maybe, multi-shot damage is pretty good, and otherwise attack speed, for example, on the weapon, on the gloves, and physical damage on your rings. And otherwise, you know, the typical crit values, the fire damage, and so on. One thing I want to mention here about Hexing Pants is you can replace this with, for example, Visage of Goons for even more toughness. Right now we have Vengeance Thief, so we can simply double our toughness from having the helm. And this will also make it much easier, you know, in case of Molten Wildebeest plus Squirt setup, to just keep the amulet buff up. Hexing Pants works in a way that you have to stutter step at all times to make it really effective. So you can run this, you can also go Mage Fist, but typically I'll go with this one or Visage Goons, so this is also up to you. And here we have a T16 Multishot setup. Here you have a little bit more choices, but it's generally the same thing. We have the aforementioned Stone of Jordan. So here it's just a nice boost for this elite damage, for, you know, you don't really want to keep up focusing restraint buff and so on. The damage is more than enough in T16, so you just go with this one. You have Everrise Ring, and then you have like this huge pickup radius, which helps you out of the gold and the progression globes. And we have Nemesis Bracers instead of Rapid Clarity. So these are the main changes here, just to give you a little bit more, you know, speed and a little bit more, you know, like easier time clearing everything, because you just one-shot everything anyway, so we don't need that much damage. It's quite easy to include Sage here, so instead of Captain Crimson you can do this, but maybe on a lower end it might be more useful to go Captain Crimson anyway, especially when you're running, you know, like Paragon 500, 4-man T16 and you're alone in a rift. Then yeah, the build might not necessarily one-shot everything, so having a little bit more, you know, extra damage and resource and so on is definitely gonna help you. But otherwise, Sage is totally fine. You get double Death Breath, and this is really nice to have. And the rest of the setup is rather similar. You try to stack up a little more resource cost reduction maybe, so you can just vault around, but otherwise you have like the same step priorities and so on. And we just like swap around maybe a passive. You don't really need Cull the Weak, for example, so you can go Tactical Advantage. You want to keep Ambush because of, you know, this strong 40% damage effect, which applies to almost all of your damage, because generally you one-shot stuff. Blood Vengeance is really good to have, because you also, you know, you want to keep vaulting, so this gives you some discipline for that. And Awareness is always nice, because you can, you know, like safely teleport out while stuff is attacking you sometimes and so on. Or maybe you run into Molten and you survive. Yeah, otherwise this is fairly similar. Pride's Fall in the cube here is like more resource cost reduction. This applies to Discipline as well, so this is simply a better version of Hexing Pants, I'd say. So because you want to be very mobile, this is really nice to essentially make your vault cost nothing. One last thing I want to show you here is the Cane swap for Season 21 and onwards. We have the upgraded Hanging Arrow items with the 9 series satchel. This is still the old one showing here, but it has a lot of damage now for Hanging Arrow. Also Hunter's Wrath got buffed. And this makes it so that you can actually run Hanging Arrow and Devouring Arrow. and you can swap to Natalia and Canes if you like to get the 25% extra key drops. So this is a lot of item swapping that you can do on a Rift Guardian, but if you're about efficiency, then this is the most efficient setup to do. And yeah, you just have to keep the stuff in your inventory. It's, I think, 10 items that you have to swap on a Rift Guardian. You press Rain of Vengeance, and then you just kill the Rift Guardian like a second or two because you have so much damage anyway. So it's just something I want to mention here. Nothing you really need to do, but yeah, it's definitely good to notice, I guess. And even outside of T16 Rifts, you can transform this into a bounty setup really easily if you like. So there's a few changes, for example, bracers to attacking arm guards for some extra mobility, maybe get back focus and restrain and so on for a little bit of extra damage. And I already covered this in another video a while ago as well, like because Demon Hunter is simply so good in bounties. It's one of the most played, like best builds in bounties, and also for the 16 and so on. It's definitely, you know, like competitive on the top level. So you can check that out if you like. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video here, and I'll see you guys next time.